Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. I'm Sara Jane, and welcome to today's conversation on Gift of Healing TV. I am delighted to be joined by my co-host, Scott Holmes. Scott, hi.
Good day.
And also our guest. Now, I'm hoping the other guest will join us, but for now, we have Dorian Des Lauriers. Dorian, thank you so much. Joining us from Costa Rica.
Yes. In the middle of the jungle.
Dorian, thank you. Now, hopefully Chessie Roberts is going to join us. I'm not sure what's going on there. So fingers crossed. In the topic, yes. We've got sort of two topics of conversation along with the book, Selfish or Harder to Manipulate, from our book, because we are all authors in I Didn't Become Selfish, I Became Harder to Manipulate. So I'm going to say to Dorian, introduce yourself, share a little about yourself and why you felt you wish to actually participate in this book.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me. So I'm a awakened man who was lost along the way and was having a tough time in my life. And then Grace whispered in my ear, Dorian, go to Costa Rica. And I've traveled much of the world, and Costa Rica was where I should come. And I came here, and I have had the most grandest of awakenings, and I've learned so much about me and life, and learned to find my way home to peace and happiness. And so I've been on a journey to help people understand how to become happy and enjoy their life here. And so working with all of you on writing this book, that was a really good intro to me to this whole public communication of all the spirituality thing. I'm in the process of writing a book right now, my experience, Awaken to Life in the Meat Suit. It should be coming out later this year.
Dorian, thank you. Can I ask you two to chat? Because Chessie's trying to get in and she's struggling. So I'm going to resend her and hope it doesn't kick us all out. So
we'll come back if it does.
We'll come back if it does.
Please do, but I might have to send everybody the link. So let's see what happens. This could be fun. So, Scott, Dorian, carry on talking, please.
Why, thank you very much. One of the things that really intrigued me and has intrigued me about your story is how you ended up in Costa Rica. Of all places, for whatever reason, but how you went about being where you are today.
What happened was on Father's Day in 2019, I had my first conversation with Spirit, and I didn't know what was happening at the time. And then as my life was declining, I had these moments where I would connect. And then I started listening. And then when my life was confused and I wasn't sure where to go, it came to me literally as if somebody spoke to me, not the words, but the certainty of information, Dorian, go to Costa Rica. And I've traveled much of the world. And so I came to Costa Rica. I did the all in. I sold my home, my car. I gave away most of my things. And I came to Costa Rica with a new phone number, a new email address, 2 suitcases. And I moved into a treehouse in the jungle, 20 feet in the air with no one around me. There was a town a few kilometers away, so I would interact with people and go to the beach, but I lived by myself. A person who's afraid to ever be alone my entire life. I left on Christmas Eve, 2020, and I woke up on Christmas morning in the jungle. And with 10 megabits per second internet. So that's what goes letter by letter, not even a word. And so really no connection. And so what I did was I listened to the music by Jason Mraz, his album, Look for the Good. And the universe is telling me, Dorian, control your inputs. And so that's one of the things I learned. All the inputs that we take in through all of the different aspects of our mind. And so what the inputs are, like the music and the 5 people I'm around with, and the things I talk about, and the music I listen to are all my inputs besides my thoughts. Those are all my inputs. And so I learned to control my inputs, and I listened to all of this beautiful music. And then had some chaos and decided, okay, I'm going to move to the blue zone which is the southern tip of the Nicoya Peninsula. So the Blue Zone. National Geographic years ago did a study of where people live the longest and are the happiest in the world. And there are 5 places. And one of those is here in Costa Rica. And so people live over 100 years, and they're way high on the happiness index. So, and so I came here, and I was going to move to Santa Teresa because I wanted to be at the nightlife, the sunset, the party, got to get on with my life. And I got there, and I moved into a house that had major construction next door. And it was beep, beep, beep all day long. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to go to the beach. And it was fun. And I meditated on the beach. And so I started practicing a stillness meditation. And so there I am on the beach. The sun had set. The stars were out. And I'm doing my meditation. I see the white, the yellow ribbons, the sparkly orbs all around me. And then this circle opens up and I'm flying. I'm flying over land that I don't know. And it was just like, oh my God, I'm flying. I'm really flying. Like, I don't even dream. And so this is totally cool. And then I'm sitting on the beach. The next day, I go back to the beach. I do another stillness meditation, exact same thing. The circle opens up. There's this tree. I'm flying back and forth. I'm like, okay, so everything I thought yesterday is in truth, I'm back at the same place. This isn't this random thing. And then I decide I'm not going to stay there anymore because the noise and everything. I rent a house on the other side of the peninsula on the east side. And so I'm going to move there on the next day. So this is July 4th, Independence Day. And that's when I have my second vision there. The next morning I woke up. I did a stillness meditation in bed, exact same thing. White, yellow, sparkles, circle, and I'm flying over this exact same land. And so my ego says, oh, Dorian, you've got this new skill. You can go to this place whenever you want. So I thought. And then I drove over to the peninsula, and I get to this new place. The caretaker greets me. I go into the house, unpack my stuff, and then I make some coffee and my book, and I go out, and he wheels a chair up to the railing. And I set my coffee down, my book down, and go to the railing. I'm looking at this massive view across the Gulf of Nicoya, and it's just spectacular. You can see forever. And then I look down, and the waves are crashing on the black lava. And then I look a little further, and the land I've been flying over, I'm now standing looking over. I literally fell back on my chair going, yep, it's the place. Like, what's happening? And so everything I knew about life changed in that moment. That was a truly divine experience that showed me things and I picked this place based on a green umbrella and table and chairs with the ocean view. That's why I picked this place. And when I got there to see that it was the place that I had been seeing in my meditations was beyond my ability to describe.
Wow.
And so that told me something. What I'm doing, I'm being called in a direction. In that house, things just unfolded more and more and more and showed me more and more things came to me, and my clairvoyance appeared and all of these beautiful things.
That is one of the most amazing stories. I had heard it before, but I hadn't heard the depth of it. And thank you for really bringing that part out.
Thank you.
Now, the book that we wrote in was I'm Not Selfish, I'm Harder to Manipulate.
Right.
Was there a part of you, I guess, in divorcing yourself from all things material almost, from divorcing yourself from the life that you knew to just pack up and leave? How did you feel about that? How did that come about, and how did that feel for you?
There were emotions like over different things, but I was following my divine light. I was being guided to do this. There was no, I shouldn't be doing this. This was, okay, this is what we're doing now. This is what we're doing now. And in that moving process, I learned about material things. And so the moment was, I packed up everything, sold everything, gave away 14 truckloads of things. I had 3 dumpsters of things that I threw away, and my closing is going to be the next day. And I'm there, and I have to remove the last couple things, which I can't use anymore. And one of those things is my mom's nightstand. My mom died years before. And so I'm there, and it's like, I can't take this. And I broke, I'm going to be emotional again. I broke down because the voice in my head is like, "You're a terrible son. How could you do this? You're throwing your mother away." And then Gracie Grace said, "Dorian, it's only stuff. It's only stuff." And I went, "It's only stuff. All of these things are just stuff." And we prescribe a value to that. Nothing has value. We prescribe a value to that. And that was the divine lesson for me, to let go of all the material things, because we don't need any of those things. Our lack of self-love and our ego makes us attached to those things, because I get definition, I get love, I get respect, I get comments from people based on the things that I have. And that's not who you are. That's the things you have and the things you do. That's not who you are.
How we define ourselves. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I want to just relate something to you about one of my adventures, and that's I'm sitting with a friend who's a medium, and we're going through this, and she's in the session, and all of a sudden she's looking to the side, and she says, "Well, what do you mean? What are you talking?" Now she's talking to somebody I can't see. Right. I don't have that ability, and she's like, "Well, wait, what is he supposed to do?" Now she's already having an argument. Okay, and I'm looking, I'm like, what the heck is going on? She says, "No, I don't know what that is." And so she turns to me and she says, "Well, this is one of your guides. He's an older man with a long beard and a turban, and he told me, and he's very curt, and he said to me, tell him he has to go to Penang." And she's like, "What? What is Penang? What?" She said, "Tell him he's got to go to the Burmese Buddhist temple, and he's got to pick up his soul parts." And I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? I don't know anything about that. So we get through the session, we look it up. Penang is in Malaysia. It's a large island off the coast of Malaysia. It's part of Malaysia. Okay, Penang. We look up, and I'm going, oh shit. One Burmese Buddhist temple. There is one in all Penang. Okay. I look it up, and it is a 40-foot golden Buddha, 40 feet high, dressed in gold. And I'm looking at it like, okay, I'm going to go to a 17-day journey to Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam with a friend of mine. And I'm looking, I said, it only looks like this far on the map. Well,
scale.
Bangkok to Malaysia. Yeah, it's not, it just wouldn't happen. So we went on the journey, 17 days, absolutely stunning, saw so many parts of the Far East. It came back, and a week later, the group that we went sends another advertisement, and it says, "Journey to Singapore and Malaysia." I'm like, never seen that before. So I look it up. So look up the itinerary. Yep. Guess where the last stop is? Penang.
That place. Yeah.
Penang. Guess where the hotel that I'm staying at is? 2 blocks from the temple. Now Penang's huge, and this hotel is 2 blocks from that temple. I look up and I go, okay, I got it. I got to go.
Message received.
So I come home. I talked to my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I said, okay, how would you like to go on a 24-hour flight to a place where you don't know the language? The food will be like nothing you've ever had, and it will be extremely hot, and you're going to be on a bus most of the time with 28 people you don't know. And she went, oh, okay. And this is someone who's never been out of the country. We did the whole flight. The gentleman that was taking us on the tour, I explained to him why we were there, and that on the last day we were, in our time off after the trip, we were going to go to the temple to visit. So we get there. We get through the whole 12 days. On the last day, he makes the last stop, the temple. He brings everybody to the temple, and he does it because it's why I was there. And I'm thinking, I've taken this trip to do this, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no clue. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know. I've read up on it, on soul parts and everything. No clue what to do. So I'm standing in front of this Buddha, and I just open myself up and say, if there is a part of me, there are parts of me that belong to me, I welcome you. And I close my eyes and I stand there, and all of a sudden I see three orbs, and they just 3 orbs that came down, and I felt them in my body. And it took me a couple hours after that to kind of get my balance back. And it was, I tell people that, and they're like, okay, you went halfway around the world. Yep. By someone, a friend of yours who was talking to somebody you couldn't see.
Yeah.
And faith is described in a lot of ways. And it was that part. And I was told that in collecting those soul parts, that my journey would be shortened immeasurably because I would have an understanding that I didn't have before. And so it is a very similar thing. And for those people who are listening to this, and how we describe, Dorian and I describe these kind of events, we don't always necessarily know what the hell's going on. Right. We don't always understand the impact, but we know what the result is. And when you're guided and you have faith in that, it can lead to immeasurable life changes.
Yes. I had a situation where I suffered a lot of abuse as a child and had a lot of issues with that. And so I changed the trajectory of my gene pool. I chose to live a different life. I actively chose to be the good dad, and be very protective and loving of my children, to teach them how life should be. And though I did all of that, I still had my suffering of my things that I caused to myself. And then on my journey here, I met a woman who wanted to speak with my father to try to heal. And I believed. And so what I had done was I identified myself as an adult survivor of child sexual abuse. And so that's how I defined myself. And by defining myself that way, I continued to inflict myself with pain my entire life. Being a survivor is not being a survivor. Letting go is being a survivor, is living. And so when you act as a survivor, you never leave your trauma behind. And so what I learned was when I identified that, so my meat suit, all the components of my meat suit go and find that and show me those things. But what I learned, it also filters your mind, your memory. So what my current identity is, it is only going to show me part of my life that fits my current identity. And so after I had this experience with Marinella, she had a conversation, and because of the way I chose to live my life and live with love and forgiveness, my father and generations behind him have moved into the light. And it was really an experience of healing backwards in time. And I'd read about that, but I have truly experienced that. And so one of my trips back to New England then, I went to this beach that I used to go to as a boy. Had never been there alone. And I didn't like to do things alone because of all that stuff. And so I'm there, I'm meditating, and I went in the water, and she said, I see you with water in the air. And she said, I don't know if this is you as a child, but I see you with water in the air. And I forgot about that. And I meditated, went in the water, I jumped in, and then I jumped up in the water, and I threw the water up in the air. My whole life came back to me in that moment. All these memories of my life, of my childhood, were there. So I suddenly had a new life in that I was able to see what my life was because I was no longer blocking what my existence has been. I was the one continuing to torture myself by identifying as the survivor instead of just letting it go with love and forgiveness. And so that's how I'm at the place. And my focus of my work is teaching people forgiveness. Forgiveness is the greatest act of self-love ever. It's a present we give ourselves in the present to have our presence. And so now I'm here today, living my life. I don't have the space invading thoughts. And so my healing was to just ignore the movie of the past that would come up out of absolutely nowhere. I'm talking to somebody and space invade, and I would put the mute button. And I thought that was healing. It wasn't. It was the exact opposite. And so now I don't have any of those thoughts. They don't come in my mind. They don't interfere with my life. And it is by forgiving all, you gain so much of yourself by forgiving. Because when I hold things, they occupy my field of awareness, and I think about them and think about them and think about them again and again and again and again and again and again. And they occupy my past, maintains my present, because I haven't forgiven. When I forgive, Gracie Grace comes along and goes, oh, okay, we're going to erase this one here. And then by doing enough of that forgiving, suddenly, oh, heavenly day. I don't have all of these thoughts and things blocking my view all the time, because now I can see and live my life without all the interference of the past, because I chose to forgive. Everything we do is a choice. Everything. Oh, it's really hard. Well, you're choosing for it to be hard. You can just as easily choose it to be easy. You could choose today instead of next month or 2 lifetimes from now. It's just a choice. That's one of so many things I've learned in this spiritual realm. It's all very, very simple. I didn't say easy. I chose simple, meaning the steps are basic. Forgive. Choose to love. Choose to be present. Simple. And people say, well, it's not easy. I'm like, well, that's the choice. I get a choice. If you're saying it's not easy, you're choosing for it not to be easy because you still need to feel something about all of that. You could just say, I'm done. No más, por favor.
Sadly, Jessie won't be joining us. She's got technical issues. She just can't get in. Which is a real shame. But I trust the universe. The universe knows what it's doing. And you're sort of talking about forgiveness. And one of the things that really struck me with forgiveness was the most important person to forgive is yourself.
See.
For allowing other people to activate those things within you when it's all their stuff.
Right.
And so it's forgive yourself for allowing people to have the power over you. Now, I absolutely get, because we've all talked about childhood and understand, as a child, we are not in a position to be able to say, no, stop.
Right.
We just aren't. Right. I certainly was far too young. You would have been. We've all had those experiences in childhood. And what I find with the work that I do is that I encourage people to reconnect with their younger self. Mm-hmm. And that is the younger self who has felt disconnected. Mm-hmm. When somebody turns around and tells you off as a child for doing something or being a particular way or saying something, if we're definitely the people pleaser type, which I very definitely was, it's, oh, that part of me is no good. And so for me, I see it as we go into that, right, I must get rid of that bit of me. And so whether you were collecting pieces from this life or collecting pieces from a previous life, whatever, or a future life even, sort of Scott. But for me, I help people to then bring that aspect of themselves back in. And I think that's really what you're talking about in a totally different way, Dorian, is we are bringing in those aspects of ourselves that we have rejected because of what other people have said and done. Right. And when we bring that aspect of ourselves back, we're becoming more of who we are meant to be, who we are here to be. Right. And that is the essential part of it is, so all those aspects that I've been able to bring back of myself. And as the child becomes confident because they feel loved and listened to and heard and cared about, as the child grows in that confidence of that love, so does the adult.
Correct.
That is why I'm able to do what I do today, having spent so many years as a people pleaser. I couldn't have done any of this in my people pleaser because I wasn't whole.
Right. Right. One of the things that I learned in my process in the forgiveness thing, when I talk to people about they feel guilt and they feel shame and all of these things about their life, and they habituate with those kind of things. And so what has come to me is that subject, is that there is no bad decision, because the quest in life is to find out who I am. And when I have a question, what should I do? Our divine guide says, do this. And we don't listen. We pick B, C, D, or number 42, and then we do that. And then we go, oh, God, why did I do that? And then we feel guilt, shame, and remorse. But those feelings of guilt, shame, and all those things are in the context of what other people would think about me if they knew. And so we're projecting out there that I feel guilty because if you knew I did that, you would judge me. And so what the truth is, relayed to me, is there's no bad decision, because in our quest to find out who I am, our divine light says, this is who you are. And then I say, well, maybe I'm not. Am I this? And so I take a journey off and I do this. And then I learn, oh, this is not who I am. And so by learning this is not who I am, it teaches me who I am. And you can never know, without engaging me too, that you're not this thing unless you tried. And so it's a way of actually, there is no need to forgive yourself, because it's all part of the divine journey of finding out who I am. And when I go off my golden, my divine path, it is to find out who I am. It reinforces who I am. And it tells me I am not these things. And so you don't even need to forgive yourself, because you never did anything wrong in the first place.
Scott.
Simple. Not easy.
Correct.
Not
unless you choose it to be easy.
Unless you choose it. And doesn't that fear just ruin and run so much of our thought processes, our decision making?
Yes.
Of, well, if I make this decision, there's 17 things that could go wrong, and they probably will go wrong, and then I'm going to be in a worse position. So I can't do that, because then. So all of these things, that it's just the monkey mind that we talk about. So the present, I'm always stuck about being present. I ask people if they're present, and they say, yeah. I said, what? All right, what are you thinking about now? And they tell me about the 17 things that they're doing. And so,
yeah, exactly.
I said, okay, well, then how can you be present here, this moment with me, if you have all of those things going on, and all those things you're thinking about, and all the things you're supposed to be doing and should be doing and could be doing and whatever. And you really have to practice presence. Yes. I don't think, it's almost like active listening, right? We listen, yes, but we don't always hear. In order to hear, we have to actively listen. We have to really look at the person that's talking. We really have to be engaged, collaborating in a collaborative effort. We have to co-create this moment. And that creation is, if it's effortless, if it's easy, if it's just second nature to you, I don't know about you, but I marvel that other people can't do it. That they are just not in this moment, not in this presence, not in
a choice.
It really is.
Yeah.
Earlier we were talking about, Sara and I were talking about ritual versus practice, and the only thing the way that I describe it is that if you have a routine and you do it mindlessly, like putting your keys in the same place each and every time you walk in the door, right? You put the keys down. Well, you go to look for them and they're not there. Well, maybe you have something in your hand and you put it someplace else. Well, it's habit, but it's kind of mindless. Ritual is doing the practice with presence, being actively involved in that practice, whether, much like myself, I do Every morning I do yoga, then I do meditation, and I do those things, and always try to be as present as I possibly can, because it sets the whole intention for the day. It sets
Right. It is about
how I
setting the
do it.
intention.
And if I just kind of go through it, just okay, I got to do this and this, and my mind's somewhere else, I might as well not have done it.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that ritual in just being present in what you're doing.
Yes.
I'd like to go back to the point of making alternative steps. I don't see that we ever make a mistake. Thinking about something as a mistake suggests there's something wrong with it.
Correct.
Is it just not another step that you've learnt something from?
Right.
That takes you on, you don't carry those mistakes around with you. You put them down like a pebble that you can take that next step.
Right.
So we choose not to listen to guidance. And it's just like, okay, we've gone and learned something else. But could it not be that we were meant to learn that something else? Because it supports us in the next step.
Correct.
So, I mean, you talked about how you ended up in different places. And I remember being stood in my little house, the one I had before this one. And I'd resigned from my job. I was going self-employed. And I was standing in the room, and I hope we haven't lost Scott completely, standing in the room, and suddenly the words were in my head, time to move on. I don't hear voices, I don't see things, but the words were just right there. They were
Correct.
so obvious in my head. And it was just like, what do you mean? I've resigned from my job. So what do you say? Am I moving? If I'm moving, where am I moving to?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just went, you bring it, I'll do it.
Yeah. Right.
And I just said it. And within days, a friend of mine said, these friends have just come back from Australia. They're moving out there. They've bought a house out there. Their house is on the market. There's a room you can have a therapy room. We should never, ever, ever have been able to have afforded to buy this place. And we still have a massive mortgage on it. We've been here nearly 20 years.
Uh-huh.
That is what the universe was telling me. But when he said, I said, okay, fine, we'll take a look at it. Because I'd said, you bring it, I'll do it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's really important, that there are going to be times when something comes at us very strongly. Now, we could very easily back out. But if hadn't listened, and if I then hadn't said, well, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about, you bring it. And I think it's trusting that. And going back to our book, with all of this, it's about, when things aren't right in your life.
Yes. Yes.
And it is for us, and we have the choice to stay, leave, or actually put our foot down and say, either we can make this work properly or I leave. So we don't have to necessarily leave, but it is about setting the boundaries. And to be perfectly honest, when you start setting boundaries with people who are manipulative, who are bullying, who are coercive, they aren't going to like it. But we've got to have the belief and confidence in ourselves.
Yes. Self-love.
100%.
It does that. Self-love lets you say, okay, you stay there. If you're going to keep talking, I'm going to back up so you're out of my energy zone and you're not going to be the soul vampire. Because if you're the negative guy who talks all the time and says all that stuff, you don't generate life force because you're always in the negative state of being. And so you're going to come into my space. You're going to touch me on the arm and say, oh, Dorian, you wouldn't believe what happened to me today. And as they're sucking your positive energy, life force out of you, and they leave, and you're like, God, I'm exhausted. which is a real thing because people come who aren't positive, don't generate life force. They need it. And people don't understand that my life force is generated by my thoughts and my feelings. They create the soup of who I am and what I broadcast. The quality of that, the color, the intensity of that is purely these two things working in tandem or against each other. And that's what I'm going to broadcast to the world.
Have either of you read the Celestine Prophecies?
I have not.
Seriously. So what? Because what you've just been talking about, there are different types of people, and he talks Redfern, I think is the surname of the guy who wrote it. Brilliant book. It really is brilliant. And he talks about the different types of energies. And you've got those energies that are the energy vampires.
Oh, yeah.
and it really is important to avoid those people.
Yes.
And or not become one of those people.
Right.
And so I must have read that over 20 years ago. And I think I lent my copy to someone and I haven't got it back. But and I can't remember what his first name is, but I'm sure it's Redfern, Celestine Prophecies. It is, for me, it was, and I'm not a great reader. I'm right, but I'm not a great reader. It was really a good read, and a lot of people were saying how good a read it was at the time. And I don't think that will have changed, to be perfectly honest. So that is potentially, because it was only a very small section within the book of talking about the different types of people that are out there. Yeah. And so that's just a thought for folks. I don't very often read a book twice, but it's one that I might actually get hold of again, have another read of, because it was, although it's like reading something like the Da Vinci Code. And I don't know whether you've read that, Dan Brown, that for a non-reader, I couldn't put it down.
Right.
And there were so many things inside that book that caught me right in the core of my being as truth. As much as they tried to diss that book and huge aspects of it. Again, that was a really good story, but I really genuinely believe had huge aspects of truth within it.
Yeah.
And so it's, what can be a story can actually have those things that speak to your soul.
Sure. And it's being aware of our energy, because everything about us is energy, and how we produce it, how we qualify it, how we share it, how we're impacted by it, and all of those kind of things. And so that's one of the things that when I do work with people here is talk to them about our energy and how we create it and how we clean it and how we share it and how we are impacted by other people's energies. And proximity matters. Like we all know the thing, the 5 people you spend most of your time with, that's who you're becoming. And that is so true. So choose, this is where choice matters a lot. Choose wisely. And it's always okay to say goodbye. It's always okay to let go with love. And so with the energy thing, if people don't understand that they have control and how they are influenced and how their mood and how they think about things changes based on proximity to another person's energy. And so like I've become very aware of that. And so I'm polite, but I'm not going to necessarily listen to you, depending on what you're talking about. And there are times I've learned to, when I'm talking, slowly step back, step by step. And if the conversation is of a certain type, I'll say, you know what, I'm sorry, I just don't want to have this conversation with you right now. Thank you and have a great day. Because I love myself enough to be able to say that. And I'm not saying with anything, it's just that I'm not interested in this. Thank you. And there's a lot of power when I first started doing that. And like people are kind of surprised that you tell them that you don't want to hear them. Wait, I'm speaking. What do you mean you don't want to listen to me? I don't.
It is interesting, isn't it? And that brings up boundaries. And I when I deal with clients, most of them don't have any, and they're no, I don't believe in boundaries. I'm like, really? You don't believe in boundaries? So I said, okay, what do you look when you see a boundary? What do you think of? Well, the walls, right? They're huge. They got barbed wire on the top, and you can't let anybody pass those boundaries. I said, okay, let's think of them a little bit differently. Think of them as speed bumps. What? What do you mean? Well, when you're driving and you go over a speed bump, you have to slow down, right? So you hear the thump, right? You hear that noise. I said, have that be a warning. You're going to let people in? Okay, let's start with a speed bump. Now, when you hear that sound, okay, that's something that I might not want to hear. And that way you have a choice. Yes, you didn't like boundaries. Yes, you never grew up with boundaries. However, you're going to need them in order to survive. Much like you said yourself, when you have people who steal your energy, steal your time, they take those things away. They don't add. They're not value added. They take away from rather than give.
Correct.
And it's really interesting about where boundaries, and you showed the boundary just by taking a step back.
Correct.
You physically showed the boundary that the boundary of saying no, and it being a complete sentence, by the way, not no, I can't do that.
No.
My sister's coming in from out of town, and I have to do this, and just like no, sorry.
Period.
Yeah, it really is.
And so I think what happens, Scott, with people that have trauma and abuse and have those lines taken away from them as children, we are not aware that we have the power to set a boundary at all. And then I didn't feel like that. And then I didn't know to trust the universe giving me this feeling of this isn't right. And then I learned to listen and trust. And it's like, oh, that's good for me. And so it took me a long time because I was not the people pleaser, but I was the guy to make sure somebody was always around me because things happened to me when I was alone as a child. And so it became that I don't ever want to be alone throughout most of my life, and did things just so I wouldn't be alone, which was a fear response and not a loving response. And then when I learned to love myself, part of that process was to change all of that. And what a difference. Life is different because I love me and I have my boundaries and I'm whole.
Yeah, I love this no. It is a complete sentence.
It is.
And we don't have to explain why we are saying no.
Correct.
So how many times, as a people pleaser, it was just like, there were times when I really don't want to do that. What excuse can I make? Because you thought you had to give a reason for saying no.
Right.
And we don't have to give a reason for saying no. It's so much about learning to love yourself.
Correct.
And how much do you respect yourself so that you teach people how to respect you? And if they can't love and respect you on your terms, and providing you aren't hurting anybody else, it's not about hurting people. Now, I know that some people that like to call others selfish, when you turn around and say no, well, you're hurting me. No,
I'm hurting me.
I'm not hurting you. I'm being true to me. You just don't like it. And so you want to call me selfish because what you're really being is selfish.
Right.
Projection. Unless you really are being somebody who's never, I don't care what's happening to other people. It's got to be about me. If you're like that, then you are genuinely that true meaning of selfish because you have no thought and consideration for others. But when it's about, no, actually, and I think learning from me that when you're constantly doing for others, you're holding two people back.
See,
you're holding yourself back because you're constantly doing for others. But more importantly, to a certain degree, you're holding them back.
Yes.
You're not allowing them to grow, to learn, to experience and do things for themselves.
Right.
So in some respects, how selfish is that for constantly doing for others and holding them back? Do you feel so that you have to be there for others all the time so that they'll like you and you'll be doing? No. It's let go of that. It's love yourself enough, respect yourself enough to be able to say that no, or to make it something different and it's not exactly what the individual asked for, but it has to work for you.
Right. So one of the things I've experienced in this process was when we make decisions about doing things, it's oftentimes in the context of what other people think instead of just what is good and right for me in my journey. And so many decisions we make, we go, is this right or wrong? Is it good or bad? And the answer is yes, because it all depends. And my example I use is going out to the bar on Friday nights. Well, if I'm new in town, I'm trying to meet people, yes, it worked. It's a good thing. If I'm trying to raise a family, it's not good. And so what I've learned through all my readings, my experiences, right or wrong, good or bad, is always the wrong question. The only question to ever ask is, does this work or doesn't this work for who I'm trying to be, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to have? That is purely of self. It's out of context of what anyone else thinks. It doesn't take into account the past or my fears of future. Does this work for who I'm trying to be, do, and have? And that is independent of another soul's thoughts or concerns. And that is my guiding light. And I teach that to people all the time. And it is very different. It changes the whole decision-making process about every single thing. Does it work or doesn't it work? And it makes a big difference in how we experience life.
So I have a question about the hotel.
Yes.
So you don't have a formal class per se about what you're teaching.
So we're actually putting together a retreat format now, but we do it. I've been doing it for 2 years from my teachings and my readings, and I just feel the conversation, and it comes to me. It is divinely inspired often. And there are times where I'm mid-conversation with people, and then the observer, I asked to have an observer years ago in one of my mushroom journeys. That's what I asked for, and they've been my guide ever since. My observer is with me all the time. It gives me appropriate, neutral feedback all the time. And then choosing to be the observer, I learn a lot about who I am and what my life is all about.
So this is having conversations with your guests.
Yes. And so I hear myself speaking to people, and they're not my words. When I'm sitting there one day, I'm having this conversation with this gentleman, and I'm like, the observer's going, dude, that's not your words. You don't speak that way, but it's coming out of my mouth. And then I started paying attention to that. And then it's just channeled. It's just channeled information for people that I know things about them, and it's hard to describe that. And like when somebody's explaining some of the things, it just comes through me to them. And one of the experiences I had here early on was there was a gentleman who came here, and little dog. We have a dog. She just found me. So and he came here and he was literally walking up totally dejected, arms down, and like the world hates him and everybody hates him. And then he's saying, yeah, like I was in town and I look at this guy and he gives you this really nasty, dirty look. And I'm like, oh, my dear, that's my really good friend. He is such a spiritual being of light. You have this thought and feeling of who you are. You project that. And when you look out, you see somebody look at you, you make you feel that way. He didn't make you feel anything. You were a certain way and you looked at him and you chose to feel that way based on that. And so he was the first person that started channeling to me. And so we had a conversation over 2 weeks. He left and then he came back. And the last night before he left, we were having a party here. And he came over and there he is dancing on the dance floor with everybody and having the greatest time and smiling and laughing. And then before he left, he came over and gave me a big hug and said, you haven't seen the last of me. You have changed my life. And And I could see it. He was a totally different being. And the interesting thing for me is his name was A New Free. Not lost on me. A new free man. Divine. And yeah. And so, like, his life is different. His life is different now. And he just sees, he sees how things are instead of how he felt they were.
Perspective.
It's great stuff.
Perspective is absolutely everything. And
100%.
I love your observer. I always tell people, remember that voice in your head, you know, that other one you hear, and it's kind of looking, and you're actually viewing you, doing what you're living your life. Now, who is that? Who is that observer? If that is you, okay, that's the other part of you.
It's the other part of me. Because I think with that, there's two parts. My divine light, the God in me, is the one who always has the answer. What should I do? Boom, right there. Every single time. Every single time. You always know what is the right thing to do. Always. We rarely choose it because we think, oh, no, I'm going to do this other thing. I want to do this other thing.
I know better. I know.
Right. I know, but I do it anyway. And then I have the experience go, oh, God, why did I do that? And then we come back and get around.
It is those parts of us. And thank you for bringing them out. And thank you for being able to be open enough to hear those things for you to channel them. The young lady in our presence is quite a channeler. She is a channeler. She gets things from the great beyond, and it just is absolutely amazing. I don't know if you had the experience of it.
Have you experienced light language?
Not specifically, but maybe I don't know it as that. I have, when I meditate, I receive things, and then I have to get my journal, and then I just pages and pages and pages and pages of things that come to me. And I know in my journal what has come to me. It's perfect. When I'm writing on my own, I scratch this out, I cross this off, I do this thing. But when I get those messages, I have pages and pages and pages in my books that are all just things that come in. It's fun.
Okay, light language is something I do not understand. I speak it fluently. I have no idea what I'm saying. I believe it to be the language of our soul. And beautiful. It is not meant to be understood by the mind, the ego mind, the ears. It will be understood by the heart and soul. So I have the feeling Scott would like a little message. So for everybody that listens to this, whenever you may listen to this, and what I am pretty certain of, because of our topic, the forgiveness, the not being selfish, harder to manipulate, it's going to be around that. So all I would suggest is relax, eyes closed, and I would invite your roots down. Invite your roots down into Mother Earth, deep into Mother Earth, anchoring into Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is sending up her love and her protection through your roots, up into your feet, up into your whole body, totally surrounding and protecting you. It is not about what you hear. It is about what you feel. Ko hant tahashteni at ta'ana ko ashtiarana timia le hastanakai shina at teanai loyashtini ki a toi na akata a shianai kate ne tarakache ni mi to I ni a ke artanoi ki shiniai ti ana to komanai ishea le ana ka che mai to oreanai ka che senatore me ka che itiai mai te ataraka che mi to ora mai te e ach toinai she, an ataranai ki chie meneta, le aranai, kan atarana chi ekeata, sorene an tore kienechia, hakaranata e, shi atromai, ka antramai kechea, sironoi kechei, na ana te ki oea, choinakata, na a makatare, shi matakara manoita. Namaste. I am not sure who that was, but I got the sense that it was very much a feminine energy, a mother energy. I wasn't sure whether it was Mother Earth, Mother Mary, or even Grandmother Anna. It may have been a mix of the three because I know they are three very strong and powerful mother energies that I work with. Whoever brought that message, that was definitely something different to that I've experienced channeling before. So thank you. How did that feel, Dorian?
I could feel that in my body. When you got to the end, I had sensations traveling through my heart. Physical sensations traveling through my heart.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
very
yes.
much.
Mm.
Scott?
Yeah, very much. Whenever you do light language, it is a feel, it is an understanding, it is. I once listened to in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish very well, of a eulogy.
Neither do I.
And you live there.
I know, it's the same thing.
And I didn't understand what he was saying, but I understood what he meant. And it is the same way that the wisdom of the words, the feeling, the sentiment, the understanding comes through, and that's what it does for me each and every time you do light language.
It's about the feeling, not the words.
Yeah.
Yep.
Always.
That's the secret to how that's how communication really is. And that's what I teach people. Don't listen, just feel them. And they're like, oh, I can't do it. I'm like, you do. You go into a place, you already have a feeling as you walk in, you know what the room is like. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, there you go. You're feeling the energy instead of listening to the words.
Yeah, 100%.
That's truth. The feeling is truth. The words are what we want people to think. What we emanate is who we are.
Beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful.
It's been fabulous. I'm sorry I was listening when I wasn't thrown out of the room. You know, it's just I had no idea what was going on.
We're here in spirit.
Yeah, always. And thank you, Scott, for holding the fort. Both of you for holding the fort. I'm sorry that we will bring Chessie on. We will sort that out at another time. Thank you to Dorian and to Scott. Any final words, Dorian, before we close?
Forgiveness is a choice. Choose to forgive. Your life will be better the moment you forgive. And you don't have to wonder what you need to forgive. Your heart will send to you the thought. When the thought comes up, whatever age you're at, remind yourself, 12-year-old Dorian, dude, you're going to be okay because I'm here today remembering you back there. I forgive and release you forever because you never did anything to me anyway.
Scott, final words.
For all those who listen to this, thank you. The words that were spoken were all spoken in and with and for love and for your own journey of healing, of being able to heal, of being more of who you were put on this earth to be. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this wonderful discussion, and come back.
Again and again and again.
Thank you. I will put everybody's website addresses underneath the video on YouTube, because I haven't got them to hand right now. I don't know where my head's gone. So my apologies for that, but please check it out. And they are on the website as well. Thank you, both of you, for the wisdom, the humor that has been shared here for the program. It's wonderful that we can bring the humor into this, because life is meant to be fun. So thank you so very much. Next week, I'm being joined by Lauren Purcell, and she's going to be sharing Embark on a Transformative Reiki Journey, Release, Heal, and Set Intentions. So I hope you'll consider joining us for that. And we're back to another Today's Conversation on the 25th of June as well. More of the authors from our book. Thank you, both of you. Very much appreciated. Look forward to connecting with you both again soon. Likewise. Peace. Namaste, sweet souls.
Namaste. Ciao. Peace to you all.